You're all like folding your hands and everything. All right, so we're live right now. I'm going to get a share over here. What's up? What's up? Hey, remember this part too. Okay. What's up, Chris?
Oh, not too much.
Hey, did you take the bike out yet this year?
Just got back from flying in here to make sure we made it to the show on time. Actually, came in from Youngstown. It was a bit chilly.
I'm sorry, what now?
So we just got me and a buddy of mine just came in from Youngstown. It was a bit chilly, but
you were out riding today.
Yeah.
What's the temperature?
I think it was 33 when we left the house. 35 now.
30.
33 this morning.
You're riding a Harley running 35-degree weather.
You got gloves.
Oh, you got gloves. Okay. Now I know this is the time of year where you guys are like itching, right? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost time, right? It's almost time for like this. Is there, well, let's ask that. Is there a season?
Hey, Pete, how often have we not ridden this year so far? 2-3 times a month?
Maybe.
Through the winter?
Yeah. Maybe.
Okay. But I mean, usually it's like a 45-degree day, right? Or 50, or I mean,
if it's daytime and above 25 and dry, we'll ride around a bit. But 40s and up, it's pretty comfortable at that point with the gear. So I wouldn't say comfortable, but it's tolerable. If you want to ride, you know. Got to get out there.
Did you see our beer show this week?
The craft beer one?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it was good. Well,
the beer was good.
The beer was good too.
The show was good. That's what I was more curious about.
No, the show was good too. Join the discussion. But yeah, the hair. I know. I know.
He's over here talking about knives and such, and he's got these two big blades. I'm walking the door. I got Wolverine over here. You know.
I understand. Okay, so it's part of I do that church basketball league thing.
Yeah, the game day thing.
Yeah, so the whole concept was I was going to be Wolverine, and we definitely, I think we've achieved a similar look.
You have to strike a pose for Harambe there.
Yeah. I will. Let me grab my phone and mute real quick. All right, so you and I talked about this. We're getting ready to do a show here, so let's do a show. What do you say? We always start with a fist bump, eh?
Hey.
All right, here we go. I got no producer today, so
Just winging it.
I'm winging it with music. Let's try this. This is what it does.
3, 3, oh. 3, 3, oh. 3, 3, oh. 3, 3,
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to 330 to Go. I'm your host, Hank Forrester, coming to you live from Stakeout Studios overlooking the rolling plains of Hardesty Park. Applause. Applause. There we go. In today's episode, we take a look at guns and the role of weapons in today's society. And when we created this show, we never anticipated that we were ever going to cover topics like this. We're outside our lane and we know it, but we felt strongly enough to cover this based on our viewer response. By no means are we experts on these topics, and the opinions that we're going to share this week do not fully represent our show as a whole. How's that for a disclaimer? You like that one?
I think we've covered bases here.
All right, so today we're once again joined by friend of show, Chris Dunn. We're going to openly discuss the matter of guns, and specifically we're going to focus on the AR-15.
All right, thanks. So, real quick, today's episode is brought to you all out there by His and Hers Wedding Party Services, and heard they're kind of a big deal. They won like an award or something this year.
We did. We got a
by the knot.
2018. We're considering a decent wedding company up in Cleveland by the knot. So there we are. All right. So that's us.
Decent at best, if not better.
Yeah. So we're decent. All right. And we DJ'd for your friends too. So that was fun. Mm-hmm. All right, so folks, here we go. We're going to dive right in. We got a lot to discuss. We're going to try and keep it around an hour or so. First of all, you guys hear us out there okay? Go ahead and respond. Say, hey, that you hear us okay. Because right now, like I said, we're doing this producer-free today. So right now, the first thing we want to talk about, back when this all started, when we initially got this idea, the Vegas shooting happened, and at that point, I kind of went off on Facebook, right? I did a Facebook Live, and I was very emotional about it, and I was yelling and hooting and hollering, and it turned off a bunch of people. But it was interesting because that day I'm doing that video. The family's all outside, and as I finished the video, my 2-year-old comes running into the house with this, going full bore like this. My 2-year-old, okay? My 2-year-old, all right? So the point is, here I am going off about guns and having this emotional response, and my 2-year-old is already holding a toy machine gun in her hands, okay? So there's so much to dive into when it comes to this topic. It's not just one area, right? And then here, we'll talk about these in a bit. But so the point is, from the time that the kids are born, we hand them a toy gun and we say, here's how you play. We take them to laser tag. It's fun. We take them paintballing. It's fun. We take them target shooting. We teach them how to shoot. We teach them how to use guns. It's fun, right? And then all of a sudden, we get into these other areas where it's not fun anymore. All right. So right now, we're going to start by first just kind of discussing just the thought process and the concept behind guns in our society in general. So right now, we're going to start. Chris is well versed in a lot of different types of guns and a lot of different munitions as well. So right now I'm going to turn it over to him, and we're going to spend some time right now just talking gun designations, because what happens right now when we have these discussions openly, people have a tendency to either mislabel a gun or not understand fully how the guns work. And so right now we're going to get into that. So why don't you go ahead and discuss that for us for a bit, Chris?
All right. Well, one thing I can say is I pay very close attention to social media news and televised news, newspapers, mostly because it's become humorous to me. And that's kind of a sad thing with all of the things that have been going on right now, that the information that we get is just so skewed, misrepresented, and sensationalized. And the problem that we run into on a routine basis is when people are trying to discuss something, when people are trying to figure something out, there's so much information that's mislabeled and then written off as something completely different. And one of the major things that I've been noticing is everybody has been throwing these terms of assault weapons out on a routine basis. And I mean, let's just be cut and dry here. Anything that you use to attack somebody is going to be labeled as an assault weapon, whether it's a knife, whether it's a billy club or a baton, or a firearm.
I use this to whittle. I use this to whittle when I'm camping.
Hey, it's a tool. It's a tool. You can designate anything for what you want to call it.
I use this one to clean my teeth. It's just.
And, that's one of those things where, even myself, this is a camping knife. This is something I can carry on me at all times, and I have no reason to harm anybody unless I choose to do so. These are not assault weapons, but let's be honest, most of these things, especially like the Grande here and things like that, are more so designed with a more sinister purpose when the designers are putting them together. But that being put aside, weapons in the sense of the defense are not used for assault. They're used to stop things from happening. But when we get further into what people are considering an assault weapon, I've heard things like, they can pass off numerous rounds very quickly, or they have a higher capacity in a magazine, or they just look scary. They're black, they're this or that. But a lot of people are failing to realize that when we're using the term automatic, we're not looking into what is actually a legal automatic weapon. I have in front of me a 9mm pistol that I do as a daily carry. Make sure it's secure and open. One of the things that is discussed is going to be the rate of fire. Now, any modern handgun that people are going to carry, if you have a CCW, you probably understand exactly what I'm talking about. If you've never held a gun in your hand in your life, you probably don't have any idea what I'm talking about. And that's the big thing, is there's either gun owners or there's people who don't have guns, and those who are educated and those who have never come near it, and they want to have their questions answered. But the main thing is rate of fire. And with anything that's a semi-automatic weapon, you're going to be looking at, as soon as you can pull the trigger, as many rounds as you can pop off. Now, this specific model of gun that I have here will carry 12 rounds. I can put an extra one in the chamber and have 12 to back it up. So I can fire off 13 rounds. I could walk into a room and I can immediately fire 13 rounds, empty, reload, and continue to go on. Now, a lot of people don't consider handguns to be quite as scary, But when you look at the violence with handguns, there are several thousand. I think 2016 was over 6,000 deaths attributed to handgun violence versus to rifles, there was only 218. And then we move into the next type of category, which would be rifles. Everybody grows up amongst family members that hunt and, various game, trophy hunting, etc. And if anybody's ever taken a moment to look at the hunting rifle that their grandfather has in the closet and the size of the bullets, if you're looking at like a 308 or a 30-06 or 300 round, you're looking at bullets that are very large. And, these are things that, anybody could walk into a room with a semi-automatic hunting rifle. And again, that rate of fire is as soon as you pull the trigger. But these are semi-automatic weapons. They are legal. They are completely legal. What you are going to hear a lot of people talking about is automatic, full semi-automatic. There's no such thing as full semi-automatic. There's semi-automatic, there's fully automatic. Now, a fully automatic firearm is something that is not legal for possession without extreme licensing, very long, lengthy background check, and usually law enforcement has to sign off on you being able to have the type of license to own one of these firearms, and they're ridiculously expensive. And the pre-ban ones, I know people are going to argue, oh, there's still pre-ban ones available. Not unless you're going to you could buy a car for what you could buy one of those firearms for, and they're not readily available. It's unrealistic. So those are firearms that, in a fully automatic sense, is where people are going to pull the trigger, and it's going to continue to fire as long as you hold the trigger, and then when you release, it ceases the firing. Now, that is what you're going to see in things like an M16, for example, which our military carries. Which the reason I'm leading into this is the precursors, because this is the big scary item right now. This is an AR-15. This is actually the gun that everybody likes to use in the shootings. Apparently, it's the most popular gun in America, as people are calling it. But you're still looking at a small caliber semi-automatic rifle. And this is, again, it's just a rate of fire. It's as fast as you can pull the trigger, 1 round per trigger pull. No different than the handgun, no different than a hunting rifle. And this is where people are starting to lose it, because with this specific rifle, yes, you can go into, at least at some point, you could have gone into a sporting goods store. You could buy this with a simple background check. If you have, if you pass the FBI background check, you could buy this at a sporting goods store. But when you look at things, for example, going back to the handgun, again, a common carried 9mm handgun, when you look at the types of rounds that we're talking about here, a lot of people see a large bullet. Where's the camera actually? Coming from this one here. So you got something that looks like a large bullet, but when you're looking at this is a 9mm round. Now, when you look at the two of these side by side, nose to nose, the 9mm has a lot more girth to it. Now, this whole entire thing does not fire from the rifle. It's only from here up. So this little thing is the projectile here. This is the actual part that leaves the gun. Whereas with this one here, it's everything from here up. Plus, this is designed to expand because it's a defensive weapon, and that's so it doesn't over-penetrate its target, but we'll get more into that later down the road. But everybody's losing their mind over these itty-bitty little bullets from a semi-automatic rifle. We're talking about the designations of the guns here, and we'll get into a few more details about the AR-15 itself in a couple minutes here. But when we're looking at the differences, what we have here is we have a sporting type rifle that people have demonized because it's black and it looks military, but it's pretty far related from anything military in that sense when it comes down to it, other than the way that it looks and the ammunition that it fires. The .223 round itself is great for varmint hunting. Really isn't suitable for deer hunting. Large game is not something that these are typically used for. And the military uses them because they do have a high velocity, they do penetrate quickly, and they are lightweight to carry, which makes it easier for people in the field to have enough ammunition to complete their missions and to be for defensive purposes and offensive purposes and military usage. So there's a variety of reasons why this gun is the way that it is. But again, you could go and you can get a 30-06, which is going to have a bullet substantially larger, more so going to be more so intimidating. Now, if you've never walked through, the ammunition section at Dick's Sporting Goods, you'd be surprised how many bullets are double and triple size. What you're going to see in the .223 round, which is again, it's such a buzzworthy topic right now. But again, the major conditions here is that rifles, handguns, even revolvers are semi-automatic. So if you're talking about semi-automatic weapons being dangerous or assault-worthy weapons, literally every gun everyone owns, from the deer rifles to the concealed carries to the basic rifles, even shotguns, which are devastating. I mean, if you've ever shot a shotgun, you put a hole in something about that big. You're not going to complete that with any type of single lead shot type of a cartridge by comparison. And so even shotguns, you can have semi-automatic. You go on YouTube right now, type semi-automatic shotgun, and you'll see how quickly that somebody can fire off rounds. The only thing that's really not semi-automatic these days would be like an old school lever action type of a rifle, and even those can be fired at a high rate of fire. If you want to do some damage, any firearm is going to be devastating in the wrong hands. So.
All right.
Pretty dark way to put it.
Well, and again, so I think where people get hung up on the classifications, and here's where I've been very in tune with this for the last several months. I'd say I wouldn't even say weeks. It's been months and months. So even before Vegas, what are you laughing at? What's going on, Kate?
Colleen messaged me.
Colleen messaged you? Okay. Friend of show, Colleen is messaging. All right. So the point is that.
Oh no, she's going to start peanut gallery.
So the point is, when we get these classifications, I think where people are hung up on is the title semi-automatic versus assault rifle versus military style weapon. When people say military style weapon, now you can school me on this if you have a little bit the last 24 hours, 48 hours. It's my understanding that this was designed or derived from the M4 or M16 combination, where it's a gas chambered gun, right? And it's designed to fire quickly, okay? And it's designed to jam less. And this goes all the way back to the Civil War. You remember the Manet ball? Have you heard of the Manet ball?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the Manet ball, when now I may be wrong in all this, so correct me, okay? It's my understanding that rifles all have a bore. So inside the rifle, there's a spiral, okay? And that's what causes the bullet to spin.
Oh, right.
All right. It's I've always been told it was bored out, right? So initially, the Revolutionary War guns didn't. All they were was a musket ball. So there was a ball. There was still a bore inside the. There was still a bore, and it would spin the ball, but it wouldn't get. It wasn't very accurate. Okay, it was accurate, here to across the street, right? But as far as to be able to shoot well with those, it just wasn't an option. When Civil War time came around, Arthur Manet, I think was his name, the Manet ball was created, where that was the first time where you saw a bullet that looked like this, right? And it had, at the bottom, it had grooves, and those grooves lined up with the bore of the rifle. So now you get that bullet spinning, and now it's a trajectory just like a football.
Exactly.
So it gets the spin going, tighter spiral, and now all of a sudden you got Civil War snipers. So that's really where the whole sniper concept was invented, okay? That being said, we've seen those guns improve over time, over and over and over with each generation. Every decade or so, they got new technology, just like everything else with technology. So these guns, the ones that you have, the AR-15 has been around since Vietnam days, right?
Essentially.
Even Korea days, right? 50s, 60s, right? So the point is, we created the M16 and the M4 to be used in combat. And then they said, hey, these guns are, I don't know if it was their kind of, what was the thought process? Why was the AR-15 created is the question, okay?
I mean, it's a versatile rifle. I mean, one of the things that's nice about it as a gun enthusiast, I'm going to put on that hat for a minute here. Having the, addition of things like you can interchange the scopes. They have these, these rail systems that go on here. You can attach different types of sights for different types of usage. If you're doing long distance shooting, sports shooting, hunting, etc. There is a degree of accuracy depending on the type of scopes that you use on them. You can add things like flashlights. You can add things like additional grips to the front or tripods if you're trying to set it down. So it's kind of like a grown man's Barbie doll. I've heard a lot of people say that there are more accessories for these guns. There's accessories for these guns than there are.
That's a quote right there. Mark that down in 330 history. The AR-15 is a grown man's Barbie doll because of its accessories. Okay, please remember that one.
It has a huge aftermarket. So and there are so many companies that make various clones of the
handles, the clips, the bump stocks, the sights, the barrels. There's so many accessories, right? Okay.
And so
is Kevin Anderson one of your friends, or is he just a friend of our show? Okay. Debunking the myth that the AR-15, the AR stands for
Flat out.
Armalite.
It's Armalite, the original company that manufactured this rifle, which was bought out by Colt. Colt actually holds the patent now for the AR-15 specifically. Now, what I have here is a Bushmaster XM15. It is not an AR-15 by all rights. It's an AR-15 clone.
Okay.
So Armalite is the company that originally manufactured it. AR does not stand for assault rifle.
Correct. Okay.
In fact, again, that's more so a designation. If I go out in the backyard, grab a shovel, and whack Hank over the head with it, it is now an assault shovel. Okay? It's the tool that you use for the purpose in mind. So,
all right, and I don't mean to be laughing about that. I'm sorry. See, guys, and this is hard for us, right? Our 330 show is fun. We're happy. We do a lot of fun stuff. So trying to dive into a topic like this, please don't think that we're taking it lightly, okay? That's why I got him on, all right? So, all right, so back to what I was saying. Back to that Manet ball, these weapons were all designed for military purposes to kill things. Okay. So my question is, and this is what I've been asked a lot of times by a lot of friends and family about the AR specifically, what was it designed to do? What is the AR-15 designed to do?
It covers a large round basis. Like I said, it is technically a sporting rifle for small game. That's what it boils down to.
Okay.
It is modeled, again, after the carbine type of a setup with the gas charges. It is a shorter rifle than some, but if we're going to talk about the Manet ball, we're going to start talking about accuracy and the types of rifling and things that are used in barrels. Let's look at anybody's hunting rifle. Let's go back to Grandpa's, Winchester 300 or so. You want accuracy. You see some of these hunting rifles. Some of them have a wood stock. Nowadays, some of them are made in black because they're made out of polymers. They're lighter weight. We're always moving forward with any kind of technology, whether it's firearms, automobiles, cell phones, etc. I mean, things are always going to be moving forward in a more efficient process. And the same thing can be said with firearms, although technically we're still talking about 1960s technology in this. The major difference that we have between the civilian model and the military model, though, is the rate of fire. And like I said, the difference between automatic and semi-automatic. There's a switch here on the side that goes from safety to fire. Those are the only options I have here.
Right, and I watched the YouTube video of the guy demoing an M16, and it has
on
three.
The
third one, it clips over and it goes to auto.
Yes, it is. It has a full auto and a select fire. Select fire is you pull the trigger, it goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which is typically what they use. Because honestly, like a lot of people freak out and they think, oh, well, the bump stocks and all that stuff, you can fire an unlimited amount of rounds in a short period of time. In most situations, you end up overheating the barrel.
Most of the people I've talked to in regards to bump stocks say they suck.
They do. It's a pure novelty, and they're kind of.
It's not well. Number one, that it reduces your accuracy.
There's no accuracy.
And number two, that it overheats the gun because the guns that it's used on aren't designed to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So then and again, this is, we could go way off into the weeds on this, folks, right now, but this is where people bring up the whole Vegas thing in regards to. Let's not even talk about it, because I've had so many people tell me that Vegas was more than what we see it as having happened.
The one thing I would say, and I don't want to touch on it either, because you can go on for days. We started talking about it, but so one of the pictures that they released showed the number of guns that he had in there, and he had things that were larger caliber and different types of guns than the AR-15. And a lot of people are going to instantly generalize guns that look like an AR-15 as an AR-15. If you spend 5 minutes on Google and you look at what other rifles are out there, there are guns that shoot much larger rounds that look just like an AR-15 by design, which are not in any way, shape, or form a designation of an AR-15. And then there are other guns that fire even the .223 round, and you can put a 30-round magazine in them. Such as some of the earlier, even World War II guns that a lot of people still have left over, like the M1 and things like that, where you can put a 30-round magazine right into that, and a gun that looks fairly innocuous is actually going to be just as damaging, if not more damaging. And there are guns out there that are far, far, far more powerful than the AR-15 that look similar or look, again, wooden stocks, looks more tame. So there's a major difference in a lot of the things that are shown there.
And one of the things that you and I had talked about previously is if you do go and ban the AR-15, something will take its place. Something will take its place.
Yeah, and that too. And that's the other thing is this is the topic of discussion, gun. This is right now something they're trying to grab a hold of. And I'm not in the NRA. I don't necessarily support its interests. I don't really support any specific political interest when it comes to it, other than I'm a firm believer of gun rights. When it comes to guns like the AR-15, right now I see it as I'm just going to voice a very unpopular opinion here. I think it's a grasp at something that they know isn't going to work. That people who are trying to move this legislation, they say, well, if we can ban the AR-15, we'll save all these lives. But you're talking about one specific model of small caliber rifle. You move up to the next type of an AR-15 gun that shoots maybe a 308. Those exist. You're talking about a much larger round, similar rate of fire, just as quick, just as scary of a looking gun. As soon as AR-15s are off the market, one of those is going to slip into place, or possibly the AK-47, which is a much larger round. It shoots a 7.62 round. Again, Google a side-by-side comparison, you'd be surprised. And those, again, similar rate of fire, 30-plus round magazines. These are guns that are still out there, but no one's talking about. And as soon as one specific gun is gone, another gun is going to be the new favorite of school shooters and psychos and terrorists. And then they're going to say, well, we need to ban all semi-automatic rifles. Then you're talking hunting rifles, or all semi-automatic guns. Then you're talking handguns. And then at that point, where does it end? And so, that's the main thing, is that taking away one type of gun isn't going to change everything. It's Mark pointed here that, he has prayers for people that have less desire to kill, and that starts in schools and families and churches. And that's really the key thing. It's not what you put in the hands of somebody that's capable of working with, those types of mindsets that they're going to hurt and kill somebody. Like, this has been sitting in my home for 3 years, and I've never done anything. It's not the gun, it's the person behind it, and it's the hands that they get into. And, how they're obtained and things like that, we're going to touch a little bit more here as well. But, when it comes down to it, it's if one is gone, something else is going to fall right into its place, and the problem is going to persist until we actually address the problem itself.
Hey, Kate, can you turn the fan on, please?
Yeah.
I'm getting warm. We're talking a lot over here. All right, so Kevin Anderson, any chance we have a Ruger? We don't have a Ruger Mini, but I know exactly what you're talking about. It looks like a nice wooden rifle. That's what he was just talking about, right? So
yeah.
You put 30 in that clip, I believe, right? And it just doesn't look as scary. It looks like a wooden
same bullet,
but it looks like a wooden gun.
The main
right?
difference is that all this from here down just looks like a rifle. This is a multi-positional, because I got a long arm, so I like to have it in that place. Somebody shorter, like my girlfriend, tucks it in a little bit more like that. They'll say that makes it an assault rifle, having a slide side. They've had the weirdest designations, but if you take everything from this barrel down and you make it wood, but you still have the same type of basic receiver and the same basic, bolt action setup here with the gas, recirculating system that causes the semi-automatic fire. It's the same gun, honey. It's the same gun.
We'll hear that. All right, so let's talk. All right, we got to move on now. We got so much to get through here. You touched briefly, next two topics, Second Amendment and NRA, okay? Where are you with the Second Amendment? Here's what I've heard so far from people, okay? And this is multiple discussions that we've been having for several weeks now. Number one, that we need to amend the Second Amendment and make it more prevalent to today's gun technology. That's one thing we've heard. Number two, it's the Charlton Heston approach, that it's my gun, it's my rights, and you can pull it out of my cold dead hands. Okay. Number three is that we read the amendment wrong to begin with, and that the militia was designed to be like a National Guard type thing, where it's something you belonged to. So in other words, you'd have a CCW part of the militia, right? We read it wrong. And the fourth opinion that we've seen out there a lot is that we need to take the old school approach of just going back to like a Three Musketeers type of thing, where you only are called upon when you're needed for defense purposes. Okay, so these are all the things of the Second Amendment. And really, the two big polar opposites that you see right now, especially on social media and in the general media to begin with, and even in person when we have these conversations, are it's either we need to change the amendment and get rid of all guns, or you're never going to take my guns away. It's the Second Amendment. It's my right forever. Okay. So where do we find the common ground, and what's your take on the Second Amendment?
Well, I mean, the Second Amendment is there to protect you as an individual more than anything. I mean, it's anything that's potentially going to come against you, whether it be, foreign or domestic, whether it's our government, whether it's somebody aggressing you and your property, your right to stand your ground. There are sub-laws that are written into, every state and municipality has their own laws as to what's going on. In Florida, if somebody so much as lays their hands on you, you have the right to stand your ground.
Hold on. Jennifer, friend of the show, she says you look so angry. She'd like you to smile. I said, go.
I think
We're a smiley.
Unless that's Colleen
We're-
typing.
We're a smiley bunch. Okay. All right, Florida, go.
Serious,
All right, go on.
But yes, in Florida, if somebody aggresses you, even with their hands, you can return with deadly force as long as you can justify it in the court type of situation. In Ohio, you're forced to be in a retreated position, and that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize. A lot of people talk about CCWs and whether or not people should be allowed to carry, and whether you should carry at the mall or a movie theater or in a school. And again, we'll delve into a little more about that because we want to talk about the school topic as well. But unless somebody's actually physically got me pinned against a wall and I feel like they are a threat to my life, or a family member or friend that's with me, if you have a CCW, you can't draw to fire. You cannot put deadly force against. There's an escalation of force that has to happen in Ohio. Now, there's a difference from state to state. Now, as far as the Second Amendment goes, you have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to bear arms. That's the way I view it. And so people are going to ask, well, to what extent? If you're going to talk about being able to defend yourself against the military, should something happen, or some sort of civil war or riots and things like that, then people argue, and me and you touched on this, like, at what point is the line drawn? The military has, fully automatic weapons and submachine guns and miniguns and things like that. And, they also have tanks and they have Apache helicopters. So are we allowed to have those?
In some recent conversations I've had with friends that are military, and the active and veterans, some of the things that they've said is that's what creates the concept of that civil war. What?
Just Collins.
Okay, Collins type of Jeff. All right. The point is the thought of the Civil War. If and when something like that were to happen in regards to, okay, well, we don't agree, yada yada yada, and now the let's say the president issues a decree. Okay, well, we're going to use our military to take over the civilian population. What causes the Civil War is the military itself doesn't necessarily all agree to follow that order, and they fracture. And then you got tanks and Apaches on both sides. So that was one of the things that, because my argument with people like Josh out there, that's a friend of the show, and he tunes in, he's supposed to tune in today, but my argument has always been, well, we've already lost that battle, just through the technology. How can we compete with the military? They've got all that stuff, and you got your ARs and all that, right?
Something separates from
but something would cause that fracture to happen, and the military would not stay unified and taking over its own people. That's the whole thought process. So from that standpoint, then, it's an interesting argument in terms of how to incorporate that into this discussion in terms of maintaining that Second Amendment right? So yeah. Where are you? You brought up the NRA earlier. Where are you? First of all, obviously, I'm not a member of the NRA. You know where I fall on a lot of that stuff, okay? I don't want to say I'm shocked, but I'm surprised at the recent, the lady, the spokesman lady.
Dana.
What's her name?
Dana.
Okay, so Dana does this commercial going, this is the week after, and I hate to laugh, but I mean, this is how we are. We're fun, normal people.
It's your defense.
It's a week or two after, and the NRA comes out and says, your time's up, and they flip the thing. What the hell is that? I'm going, what is going on here?
It's again, I'm not a member either.
Okay.
I see them as a lobbyist organization. I'm not a big fan of people throwing money at government to grease the wheels. It's become necessity. And people could argue from the left-wing perspective, Hillary Clinton did the same thing. As soon as the Vegas shooting and then the school shootings, everybody got up on their soapboxes and started ranting about gun control. They're not talking about the families and the people that are
responsible.
And then they're not talking about, the mental health aspect of it. They're not talking about why these things are happening. They're just like gun control, gun control, gun control. And the NRA is pushing back. Both sides are just as equally as insane. And you have such a divide. But you have to kind of have that. They're trying to coach people. You look at today's politics. You have the leftist mindset, the right and the right wing mindset. If you're pro this, pro that, anti this, anti that, you fall into this club. If you are, anti that, pro this, and anti that, then you fall into this club. But you can't. You have to have all 5 points on each side. You can't be four out of 5 things, because then your party shuns you anymore. And a lot of people have taken it to that extreme, I'm pro-choice, but I like guns. Like, well, what are you for? nobody supports you at this point. It creates these divides in social setting, and that's where I think a lot of this social unrest and anger is coming from nowadays as well. Because there are people that don't like our president. A lot of people. He's an unpopular, guy in certain camps, and they'll do just anything they can to spite him, media included, politicians included, and that's where things are going. So when an organization like the NRA is challenged, they're standing up apparently and pushing as hard as they can because they are that extreme, gun right. They are that extreme push. And again, they're a well-financed company. They got a lot of strength in numbers. And but the thing about the NRA that I can say, despite the fact that, again, I'm not a member, I don't necessarily agree or disagree with what they do, they get cited for a lot of things. They're constantly pulled into anytime somebody goes crazy and just starts shooting up the place. And again, just a reminder, Virginia Tech was handguns. Let's be real here. It's the type of gun that's used, and they always get dragged into it because it's a generalized thing. Firearms are used. But the NRA has never been the one actively shooting or causing the terrorism.
Kate get Pete some water. He's honestly, he just motorcycled through 35-degree weather. Okay, his face is like just.
I think the blood's finally getting.
He's
back
just
to your
getting
face there, bro.
the blood back.
I love how your fingers do it.
All right, so
Shakes, I agree, man. That's one of the things is everybody's trying to group those things. Like I said, Governor Kasich was even talking about how any semi-automatic weapon that carries more than 8 rounds should be listed as an assault weapon and be listed as automatic. So now we're changing the delegations of firearms. Again, my pistol carries 12 rounds. That's because if it's going to take me that many, anybody that's ever seen a movie of somebody, being shot by the police or something, sometimes it takes several rounds. Sometimes people are going to continue to come at you. It's not like the movies where you get hit and you fall down and you die. A lot of people survive firearm incidents. A lot of the statistics are based off firearm violence and not necessarily off of firearm deaths as well. But I'm the same way. I carry everywhere I go because I'm more afraid of the bad guy than I am, of somebody looking at me funny because my pistol popped out underneath my my hip or something like that. I'd rather have that gun on me everywhere I go with my family. Not because I'm afraid of everything, but I feel more secure. Now that I have it.
How does it work? Well, that'll take us right to our next topic. Okay, gun-free zones. Okay, how does it work when you go somewhere and it says gun-free zone, but you're a CCW, right? How do you handle what? And I don't want you to incriminate yourself here. Okay, mm-hmm. What's your thought process though in regards to that?
It's frustrating. For example, my little brother works within a hospital. He works for a technology company. He has a CCW, but he can't carry it work. He works in a giant gun-free zone. Now, if we look at anything, I saw an interesting little meme infographic type of a thing the other day, and it was a kid from the back, and it said something like along the lines of the next school shooter on the back of his shirt. He was holding what looked to be the typical black rifle, assault rifle, AR-15 motif, and there was a fork in the road, and one said gun-free zone, and the other one said armed guards. And so you have this split in the road. Now, where do you think somebody's going to go? If you know that there's an unsecure piece of property and it's gun-free, and a guy like myself is not carrying his pistol because he wants to stay a law-abiding citizen. When I go to the mall, I'm not supposed to have my gun there. They have signs all over the place. It's a trespassing charge. It's potential loss of my CCW. Could even be up to a felony. These are things I don't want. I'm not a felon. That's why I have a CCW. I couldn't get one. A lot of people don't realize the extensiveness of the background checks, even as lax as people tend to think it. If you've never bought a gun, you don't understand the process. It's that simple. It's easy to read in the paper. There was this guy Steinberg that I think he wrote for the New York Times, and again, something worth Googling and fact checking. He wrote a couple of articles about how easily AR-15s were to be obtained, and he was talking about there's no purpose for them in society, And he tried to go to a gun store and prove his point that anybody can walk in and buy one right off the shelf. And he was denied. As embarrassing as it is for him, because he had a history of alcohol abuse and beating his wife. So simple little things like that he thought weren't a problem. He had domestic violence charges. He has a violent history. We don't want people like that carrying. So they're going to screen that out. I have a clean history and I'm in my own business, so I'm able to carry. I mess that up. If I go into a mall and a security guard sees my gun printing and I get charges filed by the police, that right goes away. They're going to strip me of that. And I don't want that. It's not worth that risk to me But then again, I'm putting myself potentially in harm's way. You know, if I take my kid to school and there's nobody there, there's no armed guards, there's nobody carrying, and these kids are constantly coming in here. You know, just I don't know if you saw the other day the post I put up on social media about the kid. I forget what city it was in. It was Utah. Brought a bomb to school in his backpack.
Yeah.
And his backpack started smoking, so it failed. But the law enforcement said that bomb could have caused a devastating amount of loss of life. Like it was powerful enough to cause a huge bomb. Not a gun. Kid brought a bomb into his classroom. And he was showing signs of alliances to ISIS-related organizations and a history of past trouble and things like that. This kid that shot people in Florida, same thing. The FBI ignored that this kid had a troubled history. He was posting things on social media about violence and things like that. And so we see these patterns and we ignore them. And so why would somebody who carries want to go into a place where these psychos know that they just painted a giant target and said, there's no opposition here. You can walk right into here with your firearm because you don't care about the law. That sign doesn't mean anything to you. That sign means a lot to me because I follow the law. But I'd rather carry everywhere because I know that there are, a small percentage of psychos, but, roll the dice enough times and your number's up. So you gotta be careful, so I see it as that.
Where are you on arming teachers?
Same way I see arming civilians. A lot of people are like, we shouldn't be armed and we shouldn't have to pay for, this certification and who's going to pay the teachers to be certified and why would we want to put that responsibility on teacher? I don't think you should. Absolutely not. But I was a political science major when I went to school. And, what is that going to do for me? I could have became a college professor perhaps, but I wouldn't necessarily have to change in the way I feel about the way I carry. Now, again, my brother can't carry at work. Now, where I go, I carry. Now, if I was a college professor and I was on a college campus and knowing especially the statistics about things that happen in these gun-free zones, I would rather carry at work. That's my personal choice. I have my CCW. It's self-obtained. I've taken the training classes on my own time. It's my personal preference to carry. If a teacher doesn't want to and thinks it's too much responsibility, that's fine. But I'd rather not have my kids huddled in the corner, flip a table over and play human shield when I could be firing back. And then some people are going to say, well, we don't want teachers carrying because what if the students know? No, the point of the concealed carry is nobody knows. There could be one teacher in the entire building that has a gun, but that's the thing is whoever's coming in, they don't know if it's one gun, if it's 50 guns. The students don't know who carries. Nobody talks about it. Nobody cares. Maybe, superintendent, principals, people like that are going to know exactly who carries. Maybe they teachers listing, as far as what's going on. But even the same thing as janitors. And then again, parents. If you have a CCW, you're a law-abiding citizen. You don't want to lose that right. You're not just going to come in and shoot the place up because you have a CCW. No,
so it's kind of like an air marshal program.
It could be like that too. Where again, people are kind of intermittently sprinkled throughout the crowds, but nobody knows who's carrying.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So next topic, I think we can both agree that we're way past the rabbit hole. We're never going to have a full ban, and we know that we're never going to have a full ban. Okay.
It's debatable.
Yeah, I'm not even going to talk about it right now. So I'm pretty sure, there's people that want a full ban. I don't think we're ever going to get there. So I'm just going to cross that right off. I've also been told, you leaving? Mm-hmm. How long are you going to be gone? An hour. All right. Well, if we're still on by then, we got issues. Good luck. All right.
We'll see where we're going.
Love you. All right. So 1918 military gun ban. In other words, anything past that World War I technology, again, I don't see that happening either. So I'm going to cross that right off. We're not going to talk about it. So someone had said Mars is alive and well. That's out of Wonder Woman, right? Where Mars is like the god of war. Okay. And we know that too. All right. So I'm going to cross that off. Where are you with, and I know, okay. So the concern about registering these weapons is that, before we do that, I want to demonstrate something here. So we got my kid and me, we got BB guns and we got airsoft guns, right? So we had talked about this a couple of days ago. Here is our BB gun, right? As you can see, if you walk in to an alley or into my house at night, if I'm holding this looks like a real gun in every aspect, except the barrel. You can see the barrel, you can see it's the size of a BB. But if you walk into my house and it's dark and I'm standing there holding this at you, you're not probably going to think, gee, that's not a real gun, okay? This is a BB gun, okay? This is an airsoft gun, right? It has an orange barrel on the front, but all you have to do is spray paint that black, and now, again, it looks just like a real gun, okay? We brought these up, and I wanted to touch on this because there's been many instances where kids have had these in a park or whatever, and they've been assumed that they were a real gun. People have even lost their lives over guns like these, okay? These are toys. This one shoots BBs. This one shoots airsoft pellets. But these look like real guns, right? So this is another topic, and it's another part of the discussion in regards to, you know, these are fun. As growing up, it's a culture of America. We teach our kids how to shoot. We give them toy guns. Look at this guy. This is the Nerf Mega, okay? This will shoot the house across the street. All you got to do, just one cock, bam. It even teaches kids how to load clips. Look at this. Look at this. It holds 6 in the clip. So in a classic kid Nerf war, if I can get this in here, all right, 6 in the clip, you got the Mega, you're going to win, okay? So it's a culture that we're dealing with here. It's the culture of America. We're not going to change that overnight. It's important to have these discussions, though, and to be better equipped to understand what it is that we're up against. In regards to the NRA, the reason the NRA is one of the most successful lobbying parties in the history of the country is because we literally ingrain this into the minds of our children from the moment they're born. And don't even start on the video games. The video games are a discussion that we're going to hold off on until Wednesday. We can talk about that for about 2 hours.
And one thing I want to piggyback on that, though, is that, for example, I grew up with BB guns and playing with that kind of stuff. I mean, sometimes me and my friends, we'd go play in the woods behind, one of their houses. We'd be in a public area, in a public park. We'd be shooting each other with BB guns or, paintball. The airsoft guns wasn't a big thing. Google a video of airsoft gun wars where they're wearing military type camo and putting things on the, and they're playing military
ghillie suits. My nephew.
They're straight up doing tactical type.
My nephew, guy, that's what he wanted for Christmas.
It was a ghillie suit,
and he showed up. He's sitting there, right? We walk in for New Year's, and we pull up into
the front yard.
We pull up into the driveway. We pull up into the driveway, and he's on the ground in a ball next to the garage, not moving. Okay, and then I go and I open the door. We got a whole bunch of my kids don't travel light. Okay, my family in general packs a lot of suitcases. So there's this process. You got to unload everything, right? So we get everything ready to unload. And I come out of the truck and I start taking things in. And the bush just stands up. And I was like, oh my God. I've never seen one live, right? I mean, you've seen him on stuff, right? But that's what he wanted for Christmas, and he got it. And he literally wore it, like, most of the time that we were there. And he pulls down, and the face is gone, right? And so the point is, go ahead. I sorry.
But that's the point. Kids see that stuff, they think it's cool. They romanticize it. And the thing is, to some degree, like supporting our military, supporting our interests as a country, that's a beautiful thing. My boy Pete, is chilling over here. Your son Joshua graduated from where is he at? 29 Falls. And so he's one of those people that's protecting your freedoms. And that's the thing is, if it isn't for that, if it isn't for some of these kids that voluntarily go into the military, and some of it starts with that, some of it starts with the war games and the playing and things like that. I mean, again, when I was a kid, we had Zap-It guns. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but they shot things that looked like red Kool-Aid, and it would get on your shirt, and it looked like blood.
I remember Zap-It.
It looked like blood. I mean, you're shooting people with the intention of injury, and this was back in like the early 80s.
You remember cap guns?
Mm-hmm.
Remember the cap guns? Was the worst were those paper rolling caps where it had to hit just right, or it would miss, and then you get all mad. And
that smell, man, that was
So
take you back to your childhood right then and there.
All right, so
we've had the toy guns for all this stuff. Why do we have such an issue now? Is it because the guns look more real? Is it because the video games are more interactive? Are we more pro-military? Are we more anti-military? Are we more pro-free thinking, less free thinking? I mean, what happened? The family units are falling apart. People are working more. What is happening that we've had these things. We've had the AR-15 since the 60s. We've had the cap guns and airsoft guns. Everyone's childhood had those. Again, we used to run around the park and we didn't worry about the cops shooting at us. Nowadays, police are drawing on kids with airsoft guns. It happened up in Cleveland. And who's to blame the police? Who's to blame the child? There is no right or wrong answer in that. It's really unfortunate because it turns into an argument depending on where you stand. And people love to argue nowadays. I'll tell you that much.
I don't argue ever.
Never
Dude, that's all I did. That's all I did. That's what this is all about. All right, so your topic. I'm glad Kate wasn't here for that one. I probably would have had something thrown at me. All right, so we brought this up before: registration, licensing, and insurance. Okay, and the first thing that people will bring up when you bring up registration and licensing is that they don't want the government to know where the guns are. Okay. I have been in many conversations with several different folks over the last couple months about this, right? In regards to potentially chip tracking weapons or do RFID locations, because we're going to talk about this on Wednesday in regards to the school stuff as far as having metal detectors at the doors. But a less intrusive option would be to have a BLE detector where it would be able to detect an RFID tag as it's approaching, and it would set that off. And that way the school doesn't look like you're walking into a prison. So what are your thoughts on registration, licensing, and insurance? Should we treat guns like cars? And it's a big topic, but let's try and keep it to like 5 minutes. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if we're going to treat it like cars, we should probably change the way we act about cars, because I think that there are a lot of people that have sustained injury or have become, too old to drive, and there's no consistent testing. Now, these people that want to do certain types of training and registration, things like that, they're talking about, every couple of years. I mean, every, if it's 5 years, I have to renew my CCW. I have to go for another background check. I have to make sure that I don't have any DUIs, that I don't have any violent crimes, that, I haven't made a fool of myself in public, anything that could potentially show that I have a history building of some sort of, mental illness or violent history in brewing. They check for that kind of stuff now, but that's a CCW. That's not the average guy that goes to the sporting goods store and just buys a rifle. And, maybe setting an age nationwide. In some states, you have to be X age to buy a gun, and X age to buy booze, and X age to have a driver's license, and
yeah, we talked about that. It's most of them 16 for a driver's license, 18 to vote or join the military, 21 to drink, and 25 to rent a car. No, that.
And why is that? Why are those arbitrary numbers used? And the thing is, if we're going to complain about the fact that a 19-year-old kid legally purchased an AR-15, but you can't carry a gun, a handgun, buy a handgun, or get a concealed carry permit until you're 21. So, okay, maybe we boost the age to 21. But let's look at the Vegas shooter. How old was that guy?
Oh, so mid-50s or something.
Yeah. So how is that casually going to be stopped with an age change or anything like that? And, so there's an argument to all sides. My biggest concern with registration, however, is a lot of people don't realize that these serial numbers are recorded. And, for example, I go and I bought the AR-15 at a sporting goods store.
Where's it at?
It's on some of the place, but mostly what you're going to find is on the lower receiver, because this actually is the only part that's considered by the government to be the gun. Because you can buy all these other accessories, like I said, it's like the grown man's part of it. You can buy anything you want for these things. But the actual serial number is listed here. I'm going to kind of put my finger over because I don't want you having my serial numbers.
Sure.
But
what's the penalty if you scratch off the serial?
Oh, you're done. You're done. You can't own a gun for the rest of your life.
What's a typical?
I'm not sure what you're going to catch. I'm going to say it probably varies from municipality to municipality, but it's a federal crime, so I'm sure there's a standard rate for that. I don't know anybody that's got called a serial number problem, thankfully.
Okay.
So, but with the registration, as far as that goes, a lot of people are concerned that if there's actually a federal database, and everybody that owns an AR-15 or everybody that owns a Glock 19 or whatever is going to be in the database, and then one day when they do decide that we're going to ban the AR-15, there's just no civilian purpose for it. Let's start there. Now, this goes back to you saying you don't ever see there being a full-on ban. There probably will never be a full-on ban. What they will do is they're going to take it piece by piece by piece, is the way I see it. Because right now they're grabbing for the AR-15. It's a losing battle. They know that when they ban the AR-15, that something else is going to fall into place, and they're going to say, well, we didn't do enough. We need a little more. And they're going to have to keep coming at those who are pro-gun, and they're going to keep stealing more and more before we're down to going back to loading muskets. While the government has fully automatic weapons, the gangsters have the fully automatic weapons. and they're just coming in droves, and the law-abiding citizen is the only one that's being punished by the laws. So when you have a registration system, now you're in a database. So now when the FBI decides, well, we don't want these guns in our state anymore, in Ohio, we don't want these in the country anymore, then they start knocking on doors. Now, what happens there? Are they met with force, and then does the law-abiding citizen become the outlaw? Or exactly, it only affects law-abiding citizens. It's not going to do anything for the guns that are out there that are unregistered, so to speak. But then again, like I said, there's an FFL piece of paperwork for every firearm that I own. If something happens with a gun that I own, there's still a paper trail legally that can come back to me. And this kind of goes into, are we going to be touching on sales?
Yeah. The next question was about the FFL deal.
Okay, I'm going to touch a little on that in that regard. But going to the RFIDs and such, those are easily disabled. People can build something that can disable an RFID code. They use them to scan and retrieve things for credit card information. You could easily disable those. So anybody that is easily file a serial number can disable an RFID code in a stock of a gun. One of the things we talked about was like the IntelliGun technology, where it takes your fingerprints and you have to use that. There's some arguments with that, but that's maybe a safety measure to make sure that individuals are only the ones that are using it.
I see that more of a kid's safety measure.
Yes.
Like, for example,
your kid can't take it out of your closet and go to school and shoot people.
Yeah. Well, you're right, but I mean, yeah.
Because that's where a lot of these kids are getting guns. A lot of the kids that are doing these shootings, a lot of times
that brings up a whole can of worms, right? In terms of holding parents more responsible for maintaining safety of their own firearms.
And one of the things we could do as a country, and this is me spitballing here, is increase penalties for anything firearm related that has to do with violent crimes. You rob a liquor store, you get 3 to 5 years, when in all reality you go to jail for a year and a half, catch probation. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, let's just say you go in there and you don't have a gun. That's what you get now. But you do armed robbery, it's the same thing. You might get 3 to 5, you might catch a felony, but you'll be out on probation, walking the streets again. And you're a felon, so now you don't care. So, you might be prohibited from owning guns, but you kind of have a history of crime. So you're going to keep getting guns. You're going to keep them on robberies. And so what ends up happening is, let's say maybe we attach a federal mandatory 15-year sentence to the guy that menaces people with a gun just because a firearm was involved. Now, this is a dangerous place to go, especially against the law-abiding citizens, because people get in a jackpot. What if you are defending yourself and you need to defend yourself and the law doesn't see it in that light? Sometimes that happens. Sometimes people get in a jackpot. And then you end up stuck and you go to jail for 15 years because you had to defend yourself, but the law didn't see it as defense. That's where it gets kind of dicey. But one of the major things is if you have these, kids in these cities, in these places where, the violence builds at a young age, and they're robbing the liquor stores and they're pulling guns on their buddies and they're shooting each other in, mass numbers in the streets. You start attaching a major, a charge that's going to put you in jail, no questions asked, mandatory minimum. People are going to think twice. People aren't going to be as hard as they think they are. If you're going to shoot your buddy and he doesn't die and you only go to a year for, assault, you go in for a year or two and then you're out on probation for 5 years or something like that. What's going to stop you from saying, I beat the system once, I'm going to go back? If you pull a gun on somebody at a liquor store to rob them, then you go to jail for 15 years regardless of what happens. If you shoot somebody, then obviously, we already have laws that prevent gun violence. It's called murder. You don't kill people. People don't care about that law. And these people are not caring about the gun-free zones or any other things. So there are laws that affect the law-abiding citizen. Criminals don't care. And
all right. So as far as the law-abiding citizens go, we've talked about this over the last few weeks.
My parents are screwing up nowadays.
Well, I'd like to save that part for Wednesday. We'll talk about that Wednesday in regards to parenting, in regards to doing a better job locking up your guns, because that was immediately responsible for the last two that we've been involved with.
Or just the way they handle their kids and how their kids end up being raised to, whether or not they're
being around weapons in general.
Or just a good citizen, or just the kid that's neglected and goes out there on the streets and starts trying to,
Right. So let's save that for Wednesday. But what I want to talk about now is we talked about loopholes. So right now there are all kinds of, one of the things that people keep bringing up is they keep saying, focus on the current laws first and enforcing the current laws. So what are the current laws and why are there loopholes? Why can you, if you wanted to, sell Pete that gun right now for $500 or $700 or whatever they're worth? I think they're like $850
right now.
They're like
$850. Costs going up. Yeah.
Right. They're gonna go up. So you could sell it to him right now and he could hand you money, and he could walk away with that, and then he owns it, and nobody knows that it even happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the thing. You can go and you can buy the gun off the shelf at the sporting goods store, and you can fill out the FFL. You can go to a gun dealer, and you can do the proper transfer, and then it's all completely for you. Now, when I purchased this gun, I bought it from a surplus warehouse. It was $200. Very inexpensive gun. Wanted something simple for carry. They sent it to an FFL because they won't ship it directly to me. And the reason for that is because the private sale market really is not as legal as people make it out to be, and it's not as simple as people make it out to be. I'm going to kind of change the details to protect the innocent, so to speak, but I had a friend who obtained a firearm from a police officer. It was an ex-police issued gun, and it was purchased legally, transferred, to my knowledge. And what happened was it was sold privately from one person to another, and then eventually at the end of it all, it got stolen. It was used in a crime.
I think Ray just brought that up, so go ahead and keep going. Yeah.
Yes, and that's where I'm going to go with this. So we had a policeman that I'm familiar with. That again, he sold his police issued gun to somebody I knew, who sold it to somebody I don't know, who eventually got stolen and used in a crime. The first person they called was that police officer, wondering what in the heck happened to that police issued gun that it fell into someone's hands and wasn't reported stolen. As it all went down the trail, he said, well, I sold it to this guy. That guy got checked out. Then that guy, then that guy, then that guy. Then finally got to the end of the person who it was stolen from, and why he didn't report stolen, don't know. Don't know the guy, don't know the whole story. But the fact of the matter is that it immediately went all the way down. By 5 or 6 hands, that gun changed. So yes, it doesn't, you own that gun until the paperwork dies with you. If you do not go and sell it. Now, for me, if I want to sell it to my buddy, I'm like, hey man, you want this gun? Yeah, I'm going to sell it to you $300. He gives me $300. He can walk away. Sure, anybody can sell that. I can sell my dog the same way. I can sell my kid that way, basically. but for what it's worth, a private sale of anything. But again, if there's paperwork with that serial number that's right there, and also right there, in several places on this firearm, it's still going to come back to me if he goes out and uses a crime. So I got to be careful with what's going on. Now, they encourage you to get a driver's license copy and take down the information, but who's to say that's accurate information? The best way for somebody to do a private sale, and I think this is where it kind of gets weird, is have somebody meet you at the gun store and be like, I have this gun, I'm selling it to this guy. Fill out the FFL paperwork, they do the background check. Then you, as the previous gun owner, you're absolved. The paperwork dies with you, moves to the next person. The gun is no longer your responsibility. That's the correct way to do things. You can still privately sell. FFLs are a lot of times private dealers that have a license.
Right.
And
right.
You shut your mouth.
Well, it's funny. He said that because I did. I'm sure he saw my face because you.
Would have pointed at the ground when you're standing in front of me.
It went this way, right? It went this way. So, and he's already shown me nothing's loaded here. I mean, that would just fit, right? You accidentally shot me in the leg on the show.
Well, he's one of my club brothers. So
all right. So that goes back to the whole point of licensing with insurance.
Yes.
As far as just okay, I buy a trailer. I go to the BMV. I have a title. Why? What is wrong with that? I mean, because here's the thing: you don't know where the gun's at, but then you know the person that owns it, right? So in other words, people don't want to chip them. They want so you don't want to track them, but at the same time, if you can own a gun and not have to have it like sitting in your house, it could be in your car, or your truck, or whatever. So what's wrong with that thought process of at least having a title, a piece of paper that says this gun belongs to Chris? Okay, what help me with that?
And that kind of exists. Again, it's when you buy something at a gun show. Some people are.
And again, this is a whole myth.
Yeah.
Debunk the whole myth. What's
I'm trying to tear it apart.
Explain the gun show thing.
There are things that are actual loopholes. Like again, you could go in as a felon to a gun show, and if you get the right guy, it might be in the parking lot outside, or it might be somebody at the table that's kind of bending the rules a little bit. But most of the time, there's background checks still at gun shows. That is a myth that there's no background check that you can just go and cash and carry. No, it's mostly private sale, and even still, that's wrong. You're not supposed to do it that way, and it can come back to bite you. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Again, you can sell anything. I can sell you my car cash, but I'm not going to let you drive away with my license plate. See, that's the thing. That car is still registered to my name. This gun has an FFL attached to me. So what's going to end up happening is if I sell this gun cash and carry to somebody, it's still my responsibility. And people are like, well, they don't do that. They don't register, da-da-da-da-da. Again, if you haven't bought a gun, you don't understand. It's impossible to explain unless you've actually looked at the paperwork, filled out the paperwork, and understand where it's being filed. And again, it's not in the FBI database. The FBI doesn't know I have a gun. They can't just Google in their little database and go in and search out what guns I have in my house. But this specific serial number, if it ever has to be looked up, it'll show where it was sourced from and when I purchased it, and that all resides at the FFL. He keeps the record. And if he ever has his record subpoenaed,
who maintains it? Is it the DEA?
They're required.
Who maintains the FFL?
I want to say the ATF has to monitor that. I'm pretty sure that's the organization that handles it as a broad spectrum, but it's the individual places.
It's alcohol, tobacco, firearms,
Alcohol,
and
tobacco,
explosives. They
firearms.
added explosives now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So these places that you go, the gun stores that do that, they have to keep everything on file indefinitely. I mean, that's just it. They sell a gun, they keep that on file. They turn that paperwork in. The FBI knows when I bought this AR-15 that when I went in there, my background check was run for a long rifle, and that's all the FBI knows is Christopher Dunn eligible to purchase and own a rifle? Is his background clear? Yes, he's no felons, no violent crimes, no drug charges, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's fine. He can buy that rifle. I was cleared. Mr. Steinberg from the New York Times, who decided he wanted to buy an AR-15, they said, no, you have a violent history and alcohol abuse problems, so you can't have a firearm. So that's right there. There's a weeding process. Again, unless you're doing private sale, which essentially the loophole goes both ways. Yes, the loophole means that violent people can get a hold of guns. But let's talk about the person that's an otherwise law-abiding citizen. The person that goes their whole entire life and just never got caught. And they do have a history of violent tendencies and things like that, but no one ever, called them out on it, caught them, turned them in, etc. And they, they're walking, they're a ticking time bomb. You can't eliminate that. There's no background check to catch that. There's the talk of for mental illnesses and stuff, like when friends and family call you in and so you're like, well, we're concerned about him, and they take your guns and things, and that gets a little sketchy too.
Good segue. That's the next question. Okay, and that is
the list.
That's the question of the thought process of psyche valves. Okay, and let's use the Vegas guy as a classic example. So Vegas guy was a legal gun owner, and this is all allegedly because we don't know all this stuff, right? Allegedly, he legally owned all the guns that he had. Okay. In addition to that, he had some issues that had taken place in his life over the previous 2 years, where he had become more depressed, lost his job, had some issues within the family, yada yada yada. So his psychological welfare was deteriorating.
Okay? Which can happen to anybody.
Which can happen to anybody, and that's the question. When you come up, when you say, okay, regular psyche valves. Number one, what does that mean? And number two, who determines that? Because what people have constantly brought up to me, even Brett today at church. He said, the issue is one of the issues is, who determines who's sane and insane, and who's right and not right, and where do they have those lines? And if it's the government making the questions and the government determining who gets the gun based on that goes right back to the initial Second Amendment right, which how do you figure that out?
Hard for it to fly. And I think, if you're on psychotropic drugs, perhaps, if you're on something that is a mood modification type of a thing, where you have such an elevated mental disorder that you have become clinically enabled to have controlled emotions and things like that, it has been viewed, it has been evaluated privately. Again, not government offices. We shouldn't have to go to a doctor's office and stand in line the same way we have to stand in line to get our CCW. You shouldn't have to fill out paperwork, go to a police office and have their psychiatric evaluate. If you are checking in with a shrink because you have problems, or because your family turns you in because you had a history of hurting yourself or something, then maybe you probably shouldn't have firearms in your home. But again, what if you're an isolated individual, though, Hank? I mean, what happens with a guy like the Vegas guy, who was known to being very isolated and things like that? Who's to say that nobody saw it coming? And apparently people did see it coming, but they didn't see it. But what about those people that are walking alone in life, and then all of a sudden they just snap? Who's evaluating them? Who's telling them you should seek some help? Things like that. So then again, this can become a moot point when it comes down to it, because at what point, do they make it mandatory? Like, oh, you have to go to this place to have your head inspected, just the same as we have to go and have our car smog checked,
Right.
That's the kind of stuff that people are not going to be cool with.
Which is now free, by the way. I mean, we used to have to pay for it.
It's $20 the last couple times I did it up until recently. I went back to Akron, they do it again.
Yeah. So all right. That being said, then you brought up who should be responsible for enforcing the current laws? Why are the current laws in the books not being strictly enforced?
They are.
Is it too?
There's penalties. There's bad things happen to you when you screw up.
Okay.
I mean, there's due process. There's trial by jury. There's all kind of things that it starts at one charge. When you're arrested for anything, whether it's a speeding citation with coupled with reckless op or intoxication, police are always going to stick you with as many charges as they can so something will stick. That's their job. Their job is to get all the facts together, slap it down, and let someone else decide what actually happened. So you go into a situation where a kid goes and shoots up a school, and so obviously the kid killed people. So what happens? Now the whole court system has to decide arbitrarily to what degree of penalty. In some states, you kill somebody, you get the death penalty, you go to the chair, whatever. But it's not always that cut and dry. Why do you think people sit on death row for so long and they get so many different appeals and stuff? That's the problem. It's the legal system in general. It's the failure to prosecute crimes in a consistent fashion. This guy's lawyer did this for him, or this guy made this deal. You hear about this stuff all the time. And that's the problem, is a lot of people are making deals and changing things up, or it's their first offense, or it wasn't that bad, or, oh yeah, you shot the guy in the chest 3 times because you were trying to kill him, or you stabbed him in the stomach trying to kill him, but he didn't die, so you're not going to catch murder or manslaughter or anything. You're going to catch an assault charge. Now you're crazy and you are known to be a knife-wielding asshole, and you go out in there and you're still a knife-wielding jerk. So.
Hey, we are 1 hour and 11 minutes in, and that's our first bad word. That's like a record.
I've been really good.
It's like a record right there. All right, so reducing clips and rounds. I mean, you already touched on that earlier. I'm not going to bring that up.
They're working on it. I mean, different states have different. I mean, California, I think it's like a 5-round magazine that has to be permanently mounted to the gun, so you actually have to break the gun apart to reload it, whereas you can't just drop the magazine. So different states are doing different things, but unfortunately, California has a lot of gun violence. Yeah. And then places like Chicago, they have little pockets of their city that just have endless gun violence that the police can't even touch.
I could do an entire.
And the guns are still getting there.
I can do an entire show on Chicago, and Chicago. That's the first thing that people that are on the gun side bring up is, oh, look at Chicago. We have for a day job, we have a second office in Chicago, and again, this could be a whole show by itself. But that is more of a socioeconomic divide. It really is a lot less about guns than it is about literally having a second Chicago that literally is not entered into. It's just I don't even want to go there right now.
That's fair.
Right. So I guess when it comes down to, well, first of all, before we get the money question is where's everyone's common ground, and we'll get to that at the end. We'll land the plane in a minute. But before we do that, I wanted you to touch on, you had talked to me off air about the idea of force escalation. What is the training process for that? Number one, training as a civilian. Number two, training as a police officer. I wanted to have a couple officers come to our show on Wednesday, and I'm not sure if they're going to. I don't know if they're going to be comfortable being on camera or whatever. But what's the thought process of force escalation? Where does that fit into this equation?
All right, so I come up to you on the street, and I got a ski mask on, and I come up to you, and I grab you by the shoulder, and I spin you around, and I'm accosting you, and I don't have a weapon on me, and I'm trying to rob you. You question that, you don't know if I have a weapon, whatever, so you're going to take whatever force that you deem necessary to protect your life. Now, if I'm standing in the front yard and somebody approaches me and argues with me about how I need to cut my grass, and maybe it's a drunken neighbor or something, and they start getting a little lippy with me, I can't be like, get off my property and shoot him in the chest. So there's a difference. So if your life is not in jeopardy, again, there's an escalation in force.
And this is all stuff that you go through with CCW training?
They go through all this, yes. They tell you, flat out, that if you so much, if I have my gun holstered and I'm having some sort of a discussion with somebody that comes into an argument, I got a drunk guy at a bar or something, and I'm just walking down the street and some guy comes, hey man, what you got $1? And I'm like, no man, I don't got $1, I don't got time for it. And then he starts getting lippy with me. I can't just be like, you know what? get out of here, man. Get out of here, and start waving a gun in his face. Guess what? That's a criminal charge that I just picked up because that gun should not have been brought out in that situation. And they will discuss that with you. That's the point of these training classes. You are not to bring that gun out until you are backed into a situation where you feel your life or the life of another is in jeopardy. You can't protect your car. If you see somebody breaking into your car, you can't run out in the front yard and point a gun at their head and say, get off of my property. Now, if you're in your car and someone tries to enter your vehicle, then absolutely you can pull it out. And these are things that you need to learn. This is your responsibility by taking these classes, and your responsibility as a citizen, because ignorance of the law is not going to be something that prevents you from getting prosecuted later. And, a lot of times, unfortunately, you may lose your gun and go to jail for a while, even if you were in a completely legitimate self-defense type situation. That's one thing I do agree with you on as far as insurance. I think people who have CCW should carry insurance, but partially because of liability's sake, but also partially because of legal sake. Because a lot of times, no matter what, you're going to get sued if you have to shoot somebody. But again, is it better to be, what do they say, tried by 12 or carried by 6? Yeah. So, think about that. At least you're alive and above ground if you had to defend yourself. And then you can go to court and you can defend your case and you're still alive. You're still there for your family and friends.
Right. I get it. All right. So I think we're not going to talk about police today. We'll do that 3 months from now when this isn't so hot, because that's a whole different discussion. All right. What I think we have found the common ground. We've talked about this before. The common ground is, where do we as a society value human life? And right now, that is a skeptical discussion, because there's so many aspects to this. And we're going to talk about, when I bring up the onions, when we first started talking about this whole thing months ago, I started referring to this as an onion. It's a big onion, and it's got all these multiple layers. When I started digging further into all these discussion points, it's actually a bag of onions. They each have their own layers. Mental health, parenting, video games, guns themselves, the school buildings themselves. It's onion after onion after onion after onion, and the law enforcement response to this kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I think the one thing that we really zeroed down and focus in on is, how do we value life as a society? And I specifically told you not to bring up Planned Parenthood and abortion during this discussion. So thank you for not doing that. But the first thing that people bring up whenever you bring up guns is from a hot button topic, is they point at abortion this way and they point at cars that way. Okay. So from a common ground standpoint, though, I think we can land the mothership and say, at the end of the day, it comes down to whether you have a gun or don't have a gun, which we both fall on either side of that fence, right? Mm-hmm. It's how you value human life and how you treat the people around you. Okay, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you whatever it is that you're into, okay, Scientology, whatever. It's how do we value human life? Okay, that unfortunately is the one thing that can't be legislated. So, at the end of the day, I think our goals are all similar, but everyone just looks at it through that different set of lenses.
It's an interesting thing going back to that kid that brought the bomb to school. I talked to people about that, and people are like, wow, I didn't hear about that. There was also, recently, there was a kid that went to school and started stabbing people. And then some people were like, oh, yeah, I heard about that. Or a lot of people were like, no, I didn't hear about that. And the other one was like, oh, yeah, like 20 people got hurt, but nobody died. And it's like, well, okay, nobody died, but you still have an angry individual that was attempting to kill people. And the thing is, we're hearing about it more and more and more. Is that the media's presentation, because we have the internet, we have 24-hour media, because we have everything pipelined in that they can cherry pick all the juicy stories. But what's the funny thing about it is that, 17 people died in Florida, to my knowledge. That's what the final word was, of 17 kids were
and
killed.
You said a funny thing about it, but you didn't mean it that way.
No, I don't mean it in humor whatsoever, but I'm saying the off thing
17 was the total count in terms of kids that passed away.
Yes. And there was more
teachers included, but there were a lot more.
17 people, yeah. Wow. So you have loss of life. So that's a big thing. That's a headline. I get that. But it goes without saying that if you dig a little deeper into it, they talked about how there was 18 school shootings in the year, and it's only been a couple months into the year. Yet most of those things that were school shootings were something as simple as a guy committed suicide in the parking lot of a school that was abandoned for X number of times. They called
Here's the thing, though, and I know we worry about those numbers, what's true and what's not. But just since Florida, there's been like 3 or 4 more.
Yes, and it's because it went into the news, and a lot of these crazy kids got the idea in their head because sometimes kids just want to be noticed. Again, this goes into the mental illness and parenting factor, which we're not going to delve into. But a lot of these people, they kind of have a death by cop complex, and they know they're not going to come out alive. You can't stop those types of people. You can't deter. You might be able to deter that if you think that somebody. There was recently, I think it was it might have been 2 years ago. There was in Colorado. There was a kid that was trying to go and shoot up a school, and he was stopped by an armed guard. It was done. It was over. But it didn't make headlines. This kid with the bomb in his backpack didn't make headlines. The stabbing in the school didn't make headlines. They're putting out the gun stuff right now because it's the topic. And like you said, you're either for guns or against guns. If you want to ban the AR-15, then please just take an anti-gun stand, in my personal opinion. Otherwise, leave it alone, and we need to worry more about who's holding the gun and how they obtained it, as opposed to, this specific gun. Banning one gun isn't going to change the world. It's not going to do anything. What's going to happen is to change a heart. It's a people problem. It's not a weapons problem. The weapons have been there, and when the weapons are gone, if we turn over and turn into like the United Kingdom, they throw acid on each other. They run each other over with cars. They blow up things. They stab each other in record numbers. That's what's happening in the UK. There's still problems there. But America, hey, we got guns. We glorify that. We surely do, but we always have. So why is it so prevalent now? Is it because it's something that's so seeded into our minds from all this media presentation, or do we really have a problem? Is it going to take generations of, the proper type of peaceful thinking to help our kids grow into something? Who knows? There's no direct answer, but this is the stuff we should be looking at. We shouldn't be arguing over what model of gun should be taken off the market or whose rights should be infringed on, because that's not the problem here. The problem is definitely a people problem. I think like you said, we should all figure out some sort of common ground on the value of human life, because it's these people that apparently lose their cool, lose their track of the value of human life, and that's where it comes down to. If you can honestly take this device and end someone's life with it when yours is not in jeopardy, why did you have that in the first place, and what dragged you to that point in life where you could do that? Because that's a dark place that I personally can't understand, and I'm not leaving it as nothing in question. I'm actually curious as to what drives somebody to that point to attack somebody for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
All right, that's a good landing point. And Chris, once again, I thank you for being on. It's been interesting, right? And all right, once again, folks, it's been interesting here today. We hope that our discussion was both insightful and helpful as far as leading us to our next discussion. So here we are now. We're facing our toughest show to date. We're asking as many of you to tune in. I mean, you're not going to all be able to be there, on Wednesday. But that next Wednesday is our town hall. This Wednesday coming up, March 14th. We're also going to do some bonus coverage of the Firestone protest that morning as well. But so if you can, join us out at our town hall, and that's a Chop and Swizzle in Green, and they've been pubbing it on their websites as well. That's going to be on school safety and related issues and social awareness regarding the hot button topic in America we're dealing with right now. And at the end of that night, I want to walk out of there with deliverables where we can literally have a brainstorming of ideas as to how to make the school buildings themselves safer. So wish us luck and pray that we do this all for the right reasons and that we achieve the right outcomes. But until then, as our typical close down goes, I don't know where I'm going, but there ain't no sense in being late. Say goodnight, Shirley.
Good night, Shirley.
This podcast is a copyright of Moon Garden Media Limited.
Oh, there's a lot of peanut butter.